Hello from Mashpee High School, located in beautiful Mashpee, Massachusetts. My name is Lindsay, and I'll be reading today's Providence banner as part of the Audible Local Ledger's High School Student Community Service Program. The Ledger continues to deliver information and entertainment to the print-impaired who live on the Cape, the islands, and the South Coast, many confronting disabilities such as low vision, blindness, or neurological disorders, as we have for over 25 years. Mashpee High School is proud to assist in connecting these listeners with the outside world. Now, on with today's reading of Every Animal Matters, dated Friday, October 25th. Our first headline today reads, Cape Cod Rescue Group Wild Care Expands. Written by Denise Coffey. Wildlife rehabilitator Amy Sanders cleaned and bottle-fed a 5-week-old gray squirrel in the examination room at Wild Care on October 10th. It was one of about 30 baby squirrels Sanders had to care for that day. But squirrels weren't the only animals in the exam room. Cages held an opossum, 2 pigeons, a mallard, 3 turtles, and 2 American goldfinches. The only other animal out of its cage was a Corey's shearwater, a type of seabird. Recently, Ellis announced the opening of a new building on the premises. The 36-inch by 22-inch, 1.5-story structure with deck will allow for the reception of injured animals, storage, and a room devoted to cleaning cages, utensils, bowls, and towels. It's hard and dirty work caring for more than 1,800 wild animals brought into the center annually. The building will help 8 staff members and 120 volunteers be that much more efficient. The cramped exam room in the 1850 farmhouse will be converted into animal space. The old lobby will be converted into a new exam room. Cleaning will no longer have to be done outside or in the small farmhouse kitchen. Laundry will move out of the basement. The cleaning room is the most exciting part of the building, Ellis said. The cleaning never ends. The spacious room is outfitted with a high-heat sanitizing dishwasher, stackable washers and dryers, a mop sink, and a stainless steel 3-compartment sink donated by the Hot Chocolate Spare. A reception area will house the permanent residents: Garv, the eastern box turtle, Terry, the painted turtle, and Tortilla, the musk turtle. When people drop off injured animals, they will have an educational experience, Alice said. Solar panels on the roof will provide about 88% of the building's power needs. The nonprofit was able to match a portion of a $21,000 grant from the Turn Foundation for the panel installations. To us, every animal matters, she said. Ellis had an unbridled enthusiasm for each of the animals at Wild Care. She uses the words amazing, beautiful, and incredible often when talking about them. Whether it's the shearwater's feathers and the remarkable distance it travels, they breed near the Azores for juveniles feed on the eastern seaboard. The blind opossum, the sparkling neck feathers of a rock pigeon, the dark colors of the eastern box turtle with a healing abscess. The building project was 6 years in the making, Alice said. Wild Care gets no municipal, state, or federal funding for its projects. Veterinarians Luis, Morgan, and Lawrence Venezia volunteer their time. Outdoor release cages are rehabbed when there's money available. The 170-year-old farmhouse will need some updates. Fundraising is an essential part of Ellis's job. In 2024, 83.5% of the donations came from the public. 8.5% came from grants, and 8% came from sponsored events. More than 80% of the animals we get here are due to human impact, Ellis said. This is a problem we caused. Isn't it our responsibility to fix it? The goal is saving animals, but the bigger picture is learning about animals, what impacts them, and how we can coexist with them, she said. She calls Wild Care the eyes and ears on the ground for state and federal agencies, alerting them to emerging diseases, wildlife impacts, and what's happening to specific populations. There are some animals Wild Care cannot care for, such as coyotes, raccoons, fox, skunks, but the organization will help locate other wildlife rehabilitators who can. During the summer, staff had a chance to care for baby short-tailed shrews. Ellis called them velveteen cylindrical carnivorous creatures. No one gets to see them because they tunnel and burrow. A 30-year-old algae-covered snapping turtle was slated to be released after having its shell repaired. "Isn't she beautiful?" Ellis asked. "She's what's lurking at the bottom of our ponds." A barn held a seabird therapy pool, rooms for squirrel and chipmunk cages, and an avian flu room. The aviary has 3 inner chambers and an outer shell that allows birds to fly around and around. A Canada goose was being treated for lead poisoning in one chamber. The process is lengthy and grueling. WildCare works with Eversource on osprey incidents because so many of the birds nest on power poles, and Alice estimates that the nonprofit sees more than 100 mice a season. While some consider them pests unworthy of care, Alice disagrees. They are native species and an important part of the ecosystem, she said. They are living creatures. If you find an animal in distress, call 508-240-2255. The WildCare helpline and facility are open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. The facility is not open to the public. Our next reading has a headline that reads, "Governor Healy supports needs of restaurant owners on Q5," written by Colin A. Young. The governor will vote against 2 ballot questions, is still making up her mind on 2 others, and isn't going to say how she plans to vote on the proposal to expand the powers of a fellow constitutional officer. Governor Maura Healey gave a rundown of her ballot on October 16th during her monthly hour on GBH Radio's Boston Public Radio program with co-hosts Jim Rod and Marjorie Egan. The Democrat would not say how she will vote on question 1 to give Auditor Diana DiZoglio authority to audit the state legislature, and said she is still reviewing questions 3 and 4, respectively related to app-based driver unionization and the legalization of some psychedelic drugs. Healy said she's going to fill the no oval on question 2 to eliminate the use of the MCAS test as a graduation requirement, and question 5 to phase out the sub-minimum tipped wage. The governor, a former waitress at Diner, the Hampton Beach Casino Barroom, and nicer places in the evenings, said Wednesday that she feels really strongly about her opposition to question 5. "I hustled. I actually oppose it because, look, I waitressed on and off from the time I was 13 to 24, Healy said, leading Broad to ask if she was a good waitress. "I got a lot of tips. I think I did a pretty good job. I hustled." The governor said that she thinks question 5 is a well-intentioned effort brought by out-of-state interests. The National One Fair Wage Group, which is leading the ballot question campaign here, is also behind similar efforts in other states. Earlier this year, the head of the Mass Restaurant Association criticized the ballot effort as an idea brought from activists in California. The head of the national group has said it got involved here at the request of Massachusetts employees who reached out and sought help building a campaign. "I think it's important to vote no on this," Healy said, "because I think you run the risk of closing restaurants and putting those workers out of work, actually. Because the restaurant owners I speak to are not going to be able to afford this, and they're going to end up laying off people. In some instances, some have told me they're just going to shut down." What do tipped workers earn now? Tipped workers currently earn an hourly minimum wage of $6.75, and employers are required to pay them the difference if they do not make enough in customer tips to reach the state's $15 hourly minimum wage. Question 5 would eliminate that structure over a 5-year period by gradually raising the minimum wage for tipped workers to $15 an hour, and would give restaurant owners the option to create tip pools in which waiters and bartenders share tips with back-of-the-house workers. The Yes on 5 campaign promoted an event October 16th with Harvard Law School professor Catherine McKinnon on the ways sexual harassment affected tipped workers. The campaign said that the event is part of its broader effort to underscore Question 5 as a critical women's rights issue, and it coincides with the release of a new digital ad featuring Kamala Harris's support for eliminating the sub-minimum wage and tackling the pervasive problem of sexual harassment in tipped industries. It's a topic that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton raised when she weighed in for Question 5. You know, I had a short experience living on tips when I was a law school student, but there are people in Massachusetts who have lived on tips for decades, Clinton said in her endorsement video. Tipped workers are mostly women, and they're working hard not to make a living, but to overcome the harassment and economic barriers that stand in their way. Women have a lot on the line in this election. Vice President Harris has endorsed requiring restaurants to pay the full minimum wage, with tips on top, while former President Trump has tried to take tips away from workers. So please, stand with working women, stand with Vice President Harris and all service workers. Vote yes on November 5th on Question 5. Healy suggested that people who are still undecided on Question 5 should talk to servers and bartenders at their favorite establishments. Public polling on the question has been all over the map. 3 different surveys over the last month have shown the yes side with a razor-thin lead, a significant deficit, and then a potential blowout victory. The governor's opposition to the question puts her on the same side of the issue as the Massachusetts Republican Party and at odds with the groups like Progressive Mass Vote, MA Voter Table, and with other Democrats, including Clinton and U.S. Representative Ayanna Pressley. As the Attorney General, I fought hard for workplace protections, for fair wages, for benefits, for all that. So I am certainly in this camp, but I think this actually harms that effort, Healy said, and that's why I feel really strongly about this particular question. What about Question 1? Healy made clear on GBH Wednesday that she plans to cast a vote on Question 1, which would give the state auditor the explicit authority to audit the House and Senate. But the governor declined several opportunities to say how she will vote on that question, which has enjoyed support in public opinion polls, but is more controversial on Beacon Hill, where Healy works with the legislator. I'll leave that to the voters, she said. Broad follow-up, and Healy confirmed that she is going to vote on the matter. DiZoglio has been pushing since her time as a candidate from her office to be able to audit the House and Senate, despite objections from top Democrats that doing so would violate constitutional separation of powers. She and her allies opted to pursue a ballot question explicitly granting the auditor's office that ability after their other attempts failed to gain traction. House Speaker Ron Mariano and Senate President Karen Spilka, the 2 people who largely control the fate of Healy's legislative agenda, are firmly opposed to the notion of an audit by DiZoglio's office and claim DiZoglio is driven by political motives following her time in the House and Senate, and she often publicly criticized legislative leadership. That one I'm going to leave up to the voters, the governor said when Broad followed up. Our next headline reads, State official endorses fee. Legislation to allow a real estate transaction toll on pricey home sales. Written by Zain Razak. In Hyannis, an optional real estate transaction fee for Massachusetts towns was on the mind of a featured speaker on the annual Housing to Protect Cape Cod Conference on October 17th. The state's top housing official, Edward Augustus, told Cape and Islands housing supporters to keep advocating for legislation that would allow Massachusetts cities and towns to adopt a real estate transaction fee on pricey home sales. Last year, Governor Maura Healey had proposed the local option transfer fee as part of her $4.1 billion housing bill. The fee would have given communities the option to adopt a real estate transaction fee of 0.5% to 2% on part of a property sale over $1 million. That fee would then be used to fund affordable housing within the community. but the House later dropped the proposal from a revamped version of the bill. I think folks should continue your advocacy not only with the administration but with the legislature, said Augustus, the Massachusetts Secretary of Housing and Livable Communities. Talk about why that is an important tool to you and don't give up. State Senator Julian Cyr, D. Provincetown, also threw his support behind the proposal, urging Cape Towns to file a home rule petition in support of the concept if they have not already. On Thursday, housing advocates across the region attended the annual summit at the Cape Cod Irish Village. Formed in 2022 to push for year-round affordable housing, the Housing to Protect Cape Cod Coalition is promised of Housing Assistance Corporation, Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, Home Builders and Remodelers Association of Cape Cod, and Cape Cod and Islands Association of Realtors, according to the website. The new Affordable Homes Act, signed into law by Healy on August 6, implements 49 policies to address the housing crunch and authorizes $5.16 billion in spending over the next 5 years. State officials also estimate it will support the building and preservation of more than 65,000 homes statewide over the next 5 years. Report on new housing in each region expected. A spokesperson for the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities said the Housing Advisories Commission is putting together a 5-year housing plan that will include an estimate of how much housing is needed in each region of the state. That document would help determine where resources are spent in the state and is likely to come out early next year. In the event, Housing Assistance Corporation CEO Alyssa Magnotta presented awards to 4 housing champions: Cyr, Tara Vargas Wallace, Michael Galasso, and Lynn Rhodes. Our next headline today reads, Truro Cottage moved last winter is gone. Shocked. Written by Eric Williams. A town of Truro-owned cottage that was moved in February for future use as employee housing was recently torn down, a turn of events that the town called an unauthorized demolition in a press release. Appearing before the Truro Select Board on October 8th, Jared Cabral, director of the town's Department of Public Works, said he was made aware of the demolition by members of the public and made a visit to the site at 25 South Highland Road. I was shocked to see what I saw there, said Cabral. They took it upon themselves to demo the building, noting rot, mold, and other framing deficiencies. Cabral told the Select Board that the town's general contractor, Cape Cod Builders, Inc., thought it was the safest thing to do. However, they did not consult with the town or our consultants when they did this, said Cabral. The cottage was moved along Route 6 last winter from a town-owned parcel known as the Walsh property to South Highland Road. The town was aware that the cottage was not habitable without substantial repair and renovations, according to its press release. Seeking ways to create housing for town employees, the town was able to secure a $900,000 mass development underutilized properties grant for the project, according to the release. The project concept was to use existing buildings, the most viable of the Walsh cottages, and a privately donated cottage. Town officials are now working to identify the impacts of the unauthorized project change and determine an appropriate path forward, according to the release. Town staff will also consider alternatives to the cottage renovation, such as installing a pre-fabricated accessory dwelling unit in place of the Walsh cottage, according to the release. The Cape Cod Times attempted to contact Cape Cod Builders, Inc. by phone and email and hadn't received a response by press time. I've reached the end of our reading for today. If you know someone who could benefit from our service, or you're interested in either volunteering or donating to our nonprofit to keep us in the air, it is tax deductible. Please call 508-539-2030 or visit our website, audiblelocalledger.org. You can now listen to us on smart speakers, like the Amazon Echo Dot and Google Home. Just say, Alexa or Google, play the local ledger on TuneIn, and you'll have a clear, static-free connection to our readings. As always, thank you for listening and for all of your continued support. This is Lindsay. Bye for now.